So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a very short span of time within 30 minutes. The idea is very simple. We want you to cover your current affairs and we want you to cover them on a daily basis. But we don't want you to spend your entire day just covering them. Therefore, for your facility, we will cover the entire day's current affairs within 30 minutes. Now, just watching this lecture would be job half done because just after watching it, you need to revise it. Why? Well, revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory for longer periods of time. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes given along with this lecture, and these notes shall be available on our Telegram platform. The link to our Telegram platform is provided in the comment section below this video. Just click on that link. It will take you to our Telegram channel, and from there you can download the notes for this lecture and do the necessary revision. Alright, let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at the topics we shall cover in today's lecture. Okay, so in total we'll be covering 5 topics. Okay, here they are. Global Infrastructure Resilience Report. It was recently released by Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Okay, so we'll talk about CDRI and this report also. Then, International Aids for Navigation. Okay, this is an organization whose vice president has been elected and India has been elected as its vice president. So we'll talk about this organization IALA and what is the significance of India being elected its vice president. Okay. Then, recently, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India has formulated a committee. You see, insurance in India is regulated by Insurance Act, but this act was enacted in 1938. The conditions were different way back in 1938 and now the things have changed, circumstances have changed. Therefore, this law also needs to be updated. Now, how this law should be updated? For that, IRDA has formed a committee to review the Insurance Act 1938. So we'll talk about this. Then India is organizing Asia Economic Dialogue. So what is this Asia Economic Dialogue 2025 is? We'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about a landmark judgment given by the Honorable Supreme Court with respect to remission power of state governments. Now, what is remission of sentences? And what is this landmark judgment that the Supreme Court has just delivered? Okay, so we'll be talking about all these 5 topics. Please pay close attention. These are important topics and let's begin discussion on them one by one, starting with topic number 1, which is Global Infrastructure Resilience Report. Now, there is this organization which India basically was instrumental in establishing. Okay, it is called Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Now, it has released a report called Global Infrastructure Resilience Report. You see, infrastructure like electricity infrastructure, water infrastructure, transport infrastructure, and urban infrastructure, and many other types of infrastructures, all these things are vulnerable. Vulnerable to disasters, whether natural or man-made. And nowadays, disasters have become more intense and more frequent because of climate change. Therefore, this organization was formed called Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, in which like-minded countries would come together and make these infrastructure more resilient to these natural disasters and climate change so that people's lives are not disrupted. Okay. Now, this coalition has come out with a report which highlights the vulnerability of current infrastructure in all the countries. Okay. Global Infrastructure Resilience Report. Okay, evaluating infrastructure preparedness and resilience in disaster scenarios. Plus, this report has for the first time created an index which will measure the resilience of this infrastructure. Okay, earlier we used to just say whether particular infrastructure is resilient or not, but we were not able to measure it quantitatively. Now, through this index, we will be able to measure the resilience or vulnerability of a particular infrastructure project. Okay, this has been the major contribution of this report. This index is called Global Infrastructure Risk Model and Resilience Index. It will be able to quantitatively measure how vulnerable or how resilient a particular bridge, a particular power infrastructure, power grid is. Okay, so this is the first ever risk assessment framework for infrastructure resilience. Now, what you need to know is you need to know about CDRI. So let's talk about CDRI. So it's an international organization set up on India's initiative in 2019. Okay, its headquarters are in New Delhi because it was India's initiative to bring all these like-minded countries together. And today, CDRI has many members. US is a member, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Turkey, France, Italy, okay, Australia. Clear? But it all started with India's initiations, right? That is why we can also say that CDRI actually showcases India's leadership qualities or leadership position at the global stage. Because this is an initiative which was launched and spearheaded by India. Clear? It is a partnership of national governments, that's why USA, Argentina, Australia, UN agencies, programs, multilateral development banks like World Bank, financing mechanism, private sector, and knowledge research institutions. Okay, so all of these come together at CDRI. Aim is very simple: promote resilience of new and existing infrastructure to climate and disaster risks for sustainable development. Because infrastructure, our lives run on infrastructure. Okay, if tomorrow your city's power grid is shut down, your lives would come to a halt. That is why protecting that power grid, making it more resilient to climate disasters, is very important, right? That is why CDRI, or this is what CDRI does. Okay. Now, what were the key findings of this report? I've told you: launch of GIRI. What was GIRI? Global Infrastructure Risk Model and Resilience Index. So this was important. It provides insight into financial risk also, financial vulnerabilities of these infrastructure projects. Plus, this report has pointed out that global infrastructure needs are around 9.2 trillion. 9.2 trillion dollars must be invested on a global scale to bring or to make this infrastructure resilient. Okay, this 9.2 trillion is required by 2050. Then this report also says that low and middle income countries are very poor when it comes to infrastructure governance. They need to strengthen that. And this report highlights nature based solutions or natural solutions for infrastructure resilience. Here, you can build, basically, for example, let's suppose you have a nuclear power plant at the coastline, and that coastline is basically vulnerable to wave attacks or even tsunamis. So, along your coastline, you can grow mangrove forests. Okay, these mangrove forests would absorb the strength of or the impact of these waves and tsunamis, protecting your nuclear power plant just behind these mangrove forests. So these mangrove forests are protecting this nuclear power plant, making it more resilient. And this mangrove forest is a natural solution, nature based solution, right? So, like mangrove forest, there are many other nature based solutions that can make your infrastructure more resilient. And this report highlighted these nature based solutions. Clear? Okay. Now, let's move forward to topic number 2, which is India elected Vice President of IALA. Now, what is IALA? International Organization of Aids to Marine Navigation. Now, do you know what marine navigation is? Well, when ships are sailing across the sea, they require certain checkpoints. Okay, these checkpoints are important for them to know whether they are on the right track or not. Whether when they started to sail for USA, but are they moving towards Australia? They need to know all of that, right? So throughout all these sea routes, there are some checkpoints like these buoys, light towers on the coastlines. All right, these are known as aids to navigation. These buoys, okay, these lighthouses, they help the ships sailing across the sea to know whether they are on the right track or not. All right. Now, there is an international organization basically which takes care of all these aids to marine navigation. It is known as International Organization of Aids to Marine Navigation. Now, it was established as an NGO in 1957. But recently, from a non governmental organization, recently in 2024, it was converted into an intergovernmental organization. Earlier, it was a non governmental organization, now it's an intergovernmental organization. And this intergovernmental organization organized its first General Assembly in Singapore. And in Singapore, it decided to elect India as the vice president, right? This is the significance. Okay, so up till now this organization was an NGO. That's why it was not that important for us. That's why most of you might not have even heard about it. But now that it has become an intergovernmental organization and India is its vice president, well, now it becomes important for you to remember this organization for your exams. Okay. Plus, India will also be hosting IALA Council meeting in December 25, IALA conference. Okay, so all these things would be organized by India because India is now the vice president. Now, you need to have more information about IALA. So, as I've told you, it was founded in 1957 as an NGO, and on August 22, 2004, it was established as an intergovernmental organization after ratification by 34 states. Its headquarters are in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, France. And it is a global organization dedicated to harmonizing. Okay, these should be standardized, these navigation aids. Harmonizing marine aids to navigation, A2N means aids to navigation, ensuring safe, efficient, and environmentally responsible marine operations. Okay, now more about this organization. Well, its General Assembly is the highest decision making body which meets every 4 years. Okay, so this Singapore Assembly was the first General Assembly in 2025. The next would be conducted in 2029. Okay, the Executive Council takes care of all the day-to-day decisions. Technical committees which inquire into technical aspects. Okay, then there are a set of functions that this organization performs. You can take a look at these functions. Not that important, but just give them a cursory reading from the notes. All right. Now let's talk about topic number 3, which is Review of Insurance Act. You see, insurance in India is regulated as per the provisions of Insurance Act 1938. But this act was enacted in 1938. At that time, India was not even independent, and conditions were very different as compared to now, right? Things have dramatically changed now. Therefore, insurance sector needs to be up to date with the current change in circumstances. And therefore, the first thing to make insurance sector basically come to terms with the current circumstances, you need to first update the law. This is an archaic law, old law, made as per the old circumstances, right? But now there should be a new law which caters to current new requirements of the insurance sector, right? That is why IRDAI, which is the regulatory authority for insurance sector, like for banks, the regulatory authority is RBI, for share market regulatory authority is SEBI, for insurance sector regulatory authority is IRDAI. Now they have formed a high-powered committee under the chairmanship of former SBI chairman Dinesh Khara to review key aspects of Insurance Act. Okay. Now the committee includes top industry experts and they are expected to submit their report in 3 months. Now, what are their terms of reference? I mean, what recommendations would they make? Or they would make recommendations on which issues? So first of all, IRDA has asked them to update Insurance Act 1938 to make recommendations with respect to changes in Insurance Act. Okay. Then to inquire into the feasibility of 100% FDI in insurance sector. Currently, if I'm not mistaken, 74% FDI is allowed in the insurance sector, or maybe it's 49. If I'm not mistaken, I'll check it and inform you guys. But should there be 100% FDI in insurance sector, that means a foreign insurance company can come to India and do insurance business. Okay, they need not collaborate with anyone, any Indian insurance company. For example, Allianz is an global insurance company. But because there is no 100% FDI in insurance sector in India, Allianz has to collaborate with Bajaj Finance and create Bajaj Allianz to sell insurance in India. Now, if there is 100% FDI allowed in the insurance sector, then Allianz could come independently in India. Right? So, this committee will inquire into whether we should allow 100% FDI. Then, This committee would also look into the fact that should composite insurance companies be allowed in India? Look, currently insurance is of two types. Okay, life insurance, non-life insurance. And in non-life, we have other various categories: health insurance, car insurance, whatnot, general insurance, right? Now, life insurance companies are separate and non-life insurance companies are separate. But should India allow companies which sell both life insurance and non-life insurance? These are called composite insurance companies. Would it be feasible for India to allow these companies? This is what is being inquired into by this committee. And this committee will also make recommendations with respect to policy holder protection, customers who have taken insurance, their protection and whatnot. Okay. This is their terms of reference. Now, we talked about IRDA. This committee is basically established by IRDA. So you need to know about IRDA, right? So let's talk about IRDA. So it is a statutory body, okay, formed under an act of parliament. The name of the act was IRDA Act in 1999, and its main job is regulation and overall supervision of insurance sector. It is a 10-member body, a chairman, 5 full-time members and 4 part-time members. It sets eligibility criteria, qualification and capital requirement for obtaining licensing. So insurance companies cannot sell insurance in India without obtaining license. IRDA provides the eligibility criteria for that license, and all insurance companies have to register with IRDA. Okay. So this is the main job: supervision and regulation of the entire insurance sector, whether life or non-life. Okay. Now remember this. Most of the financial institutions have their headquarters in Mumbai. Okay. RBI's headquarters are in Mumbai. SEBI's headquarters are in Mumbai. But IRDA is one such financial organization whose headquarters are in Hyderabad, Telangana, not Mumbai. Okay, so remember this fact. Okay. Let's move forward to topic number 2, which is Asia Economic Dialogue. The 9th Asia Economic Dialogue is being organized from tomorrow in Pune, Maharashtra. Now, what is Asia Economic Dialogue? It is an external affairs ministry. So Ministry of External Affairs always organizes every year an economic dialogue, Asia Economic Dialogue. And this is considered a track 1.5 dialogue on geoeconomics. Okay. Now you need to understand what is track 1.5 dialogue and what is geoeconomics. Clear? So look, there is a thing called track 1 diplomacy. It is a kind of diplomacy in which government officials, government ministers meet and decide on international issues. Okay. Then there is track 2 diplomacy. Okay. In this track 2 diplomacy, civil society members, basically industry leaders, company heads of the companies, researchers, scientists, basically non-government actors meet, okay, and decide on international issues. For example, all AI experts of the world meet together. None of them are government people. All non-government AI experts of the world meet together and decide on a policy for AI. That would be track 2 diplomacy. Clear? Now, what would be track 1.5? When official and non-official, government and non-government actors meet together. So it involves government ministers plus various business leaders, startup owners, non-government people. Okay, that is track 1.5. And what is geoeconomics? So you must have heard about geopolitics. Okay, geopolitics is politics when you combine it with geography, world map. But when you combine the global economy with the global map, that is geoeconomics basically. Study of spatial, that means geographical, temporal, time-wise and political aspects of economies and resources that different countries have. Okay, this is geoeconomics. So basically it is a geoeconomics dialogue between Asian countries. Alright, so about AED 2025, it is the leading international geoeconomic conference that brings together policymakers, economists, business, because it is track 1.5. It is organized by Ministry of External Affairs in collaboration with Pune International Center. The theme for this year's dialogue is Economic Resilience and Resurgence in an Era of Fragmentation. Okay, the world economies are fragmenting. They are not considering free trade now. They are moving away from each other. Okay, they are imposing tariffs on each other like USA. Okay, and now let's talk about the last topic of today, which is remission without application. Okay, in a landmark decision on the rights of prisoners, the Supreme Court directed states with remission policies to consider the premature release of prisoners even if they don't apply for remission beforehand. Okay, this is called suo motu. So if government takes a decision without receiving any application from the party who's aggrieved, well, that is known as suo motu decision. Okay, though there should be some exceptions, but remission should be allowed. Now, what is remission? Suppose there is a prisoner, okay, and that prisoner has been sentenced to 10-year imprisonment. But on grounds of good behavior or many other things, he is acquitted or not acquitted. He is basically let out of jail after 8 years. Okay, before the completion of his sentence, he is let out of jail. This is known as remission. Clear? Now, the power to grant remission is given to president, is also given to governor of a state. But apart from these two things, apart from these two authorities, well, Bharatiya Nyaya Sahita, which was earlier called Criminal Procedure Code, okay, it allowed state governments to provide remissions. Okay, so apart from president and governor of states, state governments have extra power to provide remissions. Okay, so what is remission basically? The power of remission refers to the power to reduce the period of sentence for a person who has been found guilty of a crime. Now, this power comes from section 473 of Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Samhita, not Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, Bharatiya Nyaya Suraksha Samhita. Okay, BNSS. Clear? And this power is given to state governments. Now, this power of granting remissions by state government is different from the governor and president's power as mentioned in Article 72 and 161 of the Constitution. Okay. Now, you understand what remission is? Basically, you are let go out of jail or you are released from jail before you complete your sentence. Clear? Now, earlier, if a prisoner wants remission on grounds of good behavior or whatnot, okay, then he had to basically apply, send a written application, and then his application would be considered and then he would be granted remission or not. Okay, now state governments had framed various guidelines for granting remission. Okay, the prisoner should have showcased good behavior, his crime shouldn't have been that violent and whatnot. There are n number of guidelines given by state governments and they have put a lot of conditions. Okay, now when a prisoner applies for remission, he has to take care of all these conditions and guidelines before applying. Clear? But Supreme Court recently said that if a particular prisoner fulfills all these guidelines, okay, the state government shouldn't wait for his application then. If any prisoner fulfills all these guidelines, then he should be let go of immediately without the need for him to apply. Without his application, you should let him go if he meets all this criteria. This is known as suo motu. Okay? On your own, the government releases the person without waiting for his application. Okay? This is what Supreme Court has said. And this would really enhance rights of the prisoners. Okay? Clear? Makes sense? One of the restraints placed on the state government's power of remission can be found in section 475. Yes, states cannot grant remission for a person who has been given life sentence before his 14-year imprisonment. Okay, apart from that, in all cases, state governments can provide remission. Okay, and now Supreme Court has said that the application for it is not necessary. Supreme Court has said that if you have all the guidelines and criteria, and if a prisoner fulfills all these criteria, then grant him remission without receiving his application. Okay, this is very important. Automatic remission. You don't have to apply also, because most of the times prisoners are not even aware of this thing, so they don't apply. So even if the prisoner is not aware, the state government should let him go. Okay, if he fulfills all of this. This is what Supreme Court has said. All right. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you revise this lecture as well. Make sure you do not forget to revise this lecture. Okay? All right. And on that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.